And I think a common trait of a lot of coaches in the beginning is when you feel insecure, and probably in a lot of transactions, we tend to over deliver or over give too much talk and too much information. Like when I give a golf lesson now, James, just to put it in perspective, I might give a student one, maybe two main things to work on. Probably like if you delve into someone's business model and you're like, hey, we got to focus on like this one thing first. Same thing with a golf lesson. But in the beginning, when you're nervous, you know what's going on. I might be slinging out 10 things. I mean, I'm giving them all kinds of stuff to do and then nothing gets done.
You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Downloadable audio episodes can be found in the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie and Calls on Call answering service, as well as the Bold Business Book. And today we are welcoming / preparing to learn from Eric Cogorno, how to build an online coaching business. So Eric, hopefully I didn't butcher your last name too bad. How is it going today?
Yeah, everything's good. You said that perfect. Most people have a hard time with that. That was perfect, man. Everything's great. Appreciate you having me here, James, and look forward to providing some value for the audience.
Yeah. So just so the audience knows, I was on your YouTube channel just a little bit ago, and I was watching one of the videos, the one that you had right away that pops up. And I want to ask you about this before I forget, because we're on YouTube. Lots of people are on YouTube. The editing that you have in your YouTube videos seems to be excellent. And from my experience, editing videos takes about 50 times longer than it takes to record the video. So can you tell me, before I forget, tell me about your process for editing, if you hire someone, if it's you, and just the story of where it started to where you're at now with your editing.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. So I got incredibly lucky that when we started our YouTube channel, I had a partner, I had a business partner, and still do have a partner named Mary Langle. So she has done all the filming, all of the editing behind the scenes. And so, like, the ultimate hack, with building the social media, if you can find someone good to do it with, is certainly finding someone who's good at that. And so, I've gotten better on camera and the speaking and the coaching part. I like to think that's my strength and my niche. And like when I tried, James, when I first bought a camera and I tried to film myself and edit it, I literally had a hard time getting the camera on. And that's
Oh no.
serious. Yeah, dude, it was a disaster. And so I think a lot of people who try and get into social media have the exact problem you just mentioned, which is like, dude, it takes so long. The back end of the video, like you said, is way more difficult than the actual filming itself. For example, if we put out a 10-minute golf video, it takes us 10 minutes to film. We don't script it, we turn the camera on, we do it one take and go. But it might take, 6, 8 hours to get the video together. And then we come up with like 20 variations of thumbnails to pick through, titles, like all the back end stuff, to your point, is takes a lot of work. And so I don't have any great strategies to do that on your own because I've never had to. I would say my advice and hack would be to find someone who's great at it, unless you're someone who's thinking you want to build and develop the skill over time. What I see, James, a lot is like us, maybe someone who runs a business or coaching, or we do things to make money. And then we end up spending time learning these other side things. Whereas like if we just would have focused on us doing the money making activity, we could find someone and pay them to do a far better job, than we're able to. So definitely hire help. But the short version of the story, man, is I coach golf since I've been 18 years old. And Mary came in for a lesson one day. And at that time, I was coaching a lot of junior golfers. So we would have like 30 kids there, James, and there'd be like music playing and joking around, busting chops. It was just a fun, cool environment. And she was in the PR world. So she came in for a lesson one day, and I had these like 30 kids there. And she's like, Eric, this should be like a show. There's like a show here or something. And I said, gosh, it's so funny that you say that, because I had just decided that I wanted to do YouTube. This is 2016. I'm like, okay, hey, I just decided I want to do YouTube. So we talked right then and there about building a YouTube channel, and this is our 8th year now posting golf videos, and we just started our new personal development channel. So it's funny starting from scratch there again, but that's how it all started.
Nice. That is awesome. So she came in for a lesson, and next thing you know, she's your business partner, editing, doing super awesome things, helping your business grow. Dang.
100%. Yeah, and like that's a great example, James, of someone who's like, I was good at the golf coaching part, but I would have been terrible at everything else, the filming, the editing, so on and so forth. And so had I not found a partner, I probably would have never done it.
All right.
Like it can be such a, I mean, like it can be such a wall to climb that doing it in addition to your main thing, if there's a way to figure it out, getting help early on, it's just has helped me tremendously.
Yeah, it's interesting. I went to a workshop on YouTube. I mean, we're talking 15 plus years ago, a long time ago.
Mm,
But YouTube was definitely a thing. I don't remember exactly, but I feel like it wasn't the thing that it is now. And the guy essentially said, put up something because something is better than nothing.
mm.
And he had his iPhone, he has a little stand for his iPhone. He's like, everything you need to do is in this little phone. And I'm looking at a lot of the stuff, even my current stuff included. And that's more or less what we do. I mean, there's editing and stuff like that, but the quality of some of the edits that I see in some of the other videos that are maybe shorter form. This one, I guess what we do here with the podcast, I'm not expecting someone to just sit down, grab a bowl of popcorn and watch this. Be cool if they do. I'm not
Yeah.
expecting it. It's long form, just you're listening to this more than watching it. In the case of some of the shorter form stuff, the editing that goes into that is just it's next level. It's next level. I think of the one of my favorite guys to watch is Ryan F9 because I
Mm,
get into motorcycles. He's got this channel. I don't know if you're familiar with the channel,
mm-mm.
but I think he's a video guy motorcyclist that happens to work for a company that puts up these YouTube videos. And it's like a 10-minute documentary that somebody put in many, many, many hours in. It's that is one where you could grab a bowl of popcorn and watch it and just be amazed. It is surreal. And I think of myself as far as editing goes, I wouldn't even know how to do 3/4 of the stuff that they have done in those videos. So it's
Yeah.
always interesting, and I'm happy to see the videos of the cool editing and stuff because it's just impressive. It is crazy impressive.
Oh, it is. I think there's three buckets, There's like people who are good if the content's good. Maybe the editing's not as good, but it's like, gosh, the storytell, the like meat of the video is so good. Then there's people who have great editing and graphics and stuff, but it's kind of like, yeah, the meat or what they give you is okay. And then the middle bucket, like what I see is the people who can do both of those, who are like great info, great storytell, good EQ, they connect with the audience, and they can find ways to make their videos engaging outside of a few anomalies, I think are the ones that like hit grand slams,
Right? Fair.
that
Totally
like,
fair.
yeah. And it's an interesting game. And I think things have changed a lot too. I don't know how deep you want to go in this, but I mean, like obviously since TikTok came in and like when we first started posting in 16, 17, you could get away with longer formats, less B-roll, less eye candy, just more talk to camera. It seems like now when I look at our stats and watch time, that like we're really cognizant of we have a camera switch every 3 or 4 seconds, different angle. We'll have B-roll every 20 seconds, like non-negotiable things just to keep people's attention span. So that's been an interesting thing to follow in the past couple of years.
Yeah, you raised a huge point because I was looking at even just YouTube wanting you to post those little shorts.
Mm,
And my first thought was, what in the world, right? I'm old guy, so I don't care about the shorts. Because I like to listen to longer form stuff because you can just throw it in the car, you hit play, and you just move on with your life. I don't feel the need to click every 5 seconds for a new video. But apparently, I'm in the minority because there seem to be a ton, and YouTube is trying to push. I imagine to compete with TikTok, like push that short form video, push that short form video. So it's interesting to see how the market itself has evolved. But you're totally right. B-roll every few seconds and zoom in, zoom out, the text, the fonts, all that kind of stuff. It's like a constantly look at me, look at me, look at me, don't go away. So it's very interesting, good or bad. It's very interesting to see how it has changed. And that just
yeah,
goes
and I
on
think
the producer to make sure that they get the edits in there instead of just click and record, click and stop, and click and post. The world has changed a little bit, a lot of it.
a lot of it. Yeah, I think the glass half full thing, the positive note I would kind of wrap that up with is if you're someone that's doing it, the good news is there's so many opportunities in all forms. So because there are shorts now, you can be great at shorts, you can be great at mid length. We do a lot of 10 to 12 minute, we'll call it mid length, and you can be great at long form. And I think you can win in any of them, even if you don't do them all at the same time, which is nice.
Fair,
That's cool.
fair, totally fair. So
Yeah.
let's go back to you when you're teaching golf, you're teaching these kids, teaching the PR woman, things are going cool. Were you actually thinking of venturing off into something more, I'm going to say national, but I guess it'd be national, international, and even not directly in person? Like that's a big step.
Yeah, initially I wasn't thinking that. And then, so kind of what happened was I started teaching golf, let's say age 18. I spent my first 5 to 10 years really focused on getting great at golf coaching. And one of the things, James, is I talk to people about building socials and online brands, especially in the world we are now. It's easy to want to skip that phase. Like all of the advice that I'd have of building an online brand, big YouTube channel, online business, et cetera. And I would think I would assume say the same thing is like that comes after the assumption that you've got a base of being great or getting great at the thing you do. I'm in the golf coaching world, so I talk to a lot of people who are in coaching or selling services. And so, if I'm one of the best coaches in the world, all the other stuff gets a lot easier. But if I'm not that great at coaching, I got to get really good at these other things, and then that usually doesn't last anyway. People sort of
Oh,
figure you out. So
yeah.
like I had enough awareness in the beginning to know, okay, I've got to get good at this. And frankly, when I first started coaching, just like I'm sure your first podcast, the first things we do we stink at naturally. We haven't done it
Mhm.
before. So I gave some terrible golf lessons. I mean, really bad in the beginning. But I didn't know any better. Like I was trying my best, just giving way too much information, insecure. And so sort of had an obsession of like, okay, I got to get better at this thing. Like I stink at this. I spent 5 to 10 years getting really, really good at coaching first. And then by the time I was like 28, so I guess that's 10 years in, dude, I felt tired, burnt out. I
Oh,
was working, good at what I thought was a lot of hours. It's not physically taxing being out in the sun on the range, but you're like out in the sun all day. It's just like, and I thought to myself, gosh, like there ain't no way I could do this when I'm 50, 60 years old. Like, no way. Now, there's a lot of things that happen at the same time for me that helped me. So, like, at that time, right before that, I had watched this. You ever see like these minimalist guys on like Netflix and YouTube and stuff?
yeah, like tiny house stuff or living off the land kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So I got a little minimalist kick, okay, before this point where I was like, got rid of a lot of my stuff, brought my expenses down. I lived very cheap. And this is sort of on my search for like happiness and feeling good and stuff. And I went through that phase and it was good, but it didn't feel like enough for me. I was like, hey, let's say at this point I'm coaching golf, James. My first year I made $7,500. My second year I made 15,000, so I doubled. Then I made 30,000, doubled. Then I made 60, and then I made 80, 90. And I kind of got stuck at like 80 to 90 grand a year at this in-person coaching. But I was living on like 30. So I didn't do, it
That
wasn't
ain't
like I
bad.
needed. It was great, dude. I was like,
Sounds
I
like
didn't
pretty
need any
sweet.
money. Yeah, it was all good. But then it was like deep down, I didn't feel like satisfied.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, I felt like, okay, this is great, but this financial freedom thing and this, you know, it just didn't give me what I was thinking it was going to, which I think is a common theme for a lot of us when you sort of hit goals and milestones. And so I coupled that feeling with like, hey, I feel kind of tired, burnt out, 20, I can't do this forever. And this is like when I wanted to do YouTube and I met Mary, things for me have seemed to just beautifully be timed, like just lucky, depending on what you believe upon. Yeah, very, very lucky. And so at the same time that this was happening, my friend sent me a video from Tony Robbins.
Oh yeah.
Just randomly, I remember I was in the bathroom of my apartment and he texted me this video. He's like, you should watch this, a thing from Tony Robbins. And I watched it and I liked it, but it didn't like do anything to me really in the moment. But in that little recommended thing right next to it, there was a video from a guy named Jim Rohn. And I clicked on it. And when I first listened to Jim Rohn talk, I think it's called The Day That Changed Your Life. It's a 2 hour seminar. It was like my whole world changed. Like listening to that man speak and how he made things seem so simple. It's one of those things when someone says something where like you're like, duh, like why didn't I think of that? You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, that's obvious. And so it was the first time I was really exposed to personal development, right? The idea of like Jim says, focus more on making you better um, than getting good at your job, like focusing on improving yourself. And right after I watched that video, there was the next recommended video was a Jim Rohn goal setting workshop. It was a two part video. It's like an hour long. And I sat down, I pulled out a legal pad, like I've got here right next to me that I take notes on. And I did his goal setting workshop. And he said, basically write down everything you'd want. Just dream life, no circumstances, no logistics. Just like if you could dream up this dream life in 10 years from now, like what would it look like? And I did that and wrote them all down. And, how long would I think this would take, so on and so forth. And that was the first time that my brain felt like it was allowed to think big enough to like, I'm rating this the beach house here, cars, this, that, financial freedom, so on and so forth. And I think looking back upon it, I got stuck at 80 to 90 grand a year because that's as far as my brain was like seeing. And I think when I did this goal setting workshop, it was the first time I really allowed myself to like, what would even be possible here? And I wrote those things down. And Jim, the whole thing there was like, you're trying to do with financial freedom. So can you have enough money invested that spits you off money every month to pay for it? So I looked up all these things I wanted, and it turned out it was like 20 grand a month.
A month.
So that was kind of nice. A month.
All right.
So it wasn't like a million a month. I was like, okay, 20 grand a month. Now at this time I'm making 80, 90 grand.
It's a good
So,
start.
it was a good start. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So 20 grand a month to pay for this dream life that I wanted. You do some quick math on it, 6% return, so on and so forth. I figured out I needed like $4 million invested. I needed 4 million invested to spit me out about 20 grand a month. And I did this when I was like just before 30. So I said, okay, what would be nice to have this dream life by? I'm like, well, damn, imagine being fully retired when I'm 40, 10 years from now. That'd be cool. So take 4 million, divide it down. I'm like, I'm making 80. It'll probably take me a good 3 years to get this thing going. If I give myself 7 years, 33 to 40, do you divide that down? So like, how do I've got $0 basically. How do I save $4 million? And that led me to, hey, I got to make about $1.2 million a year to pay taxes, live my dream life along the way and save money. And that $1.2 million a year, then I started to think like, I'm coaching golf, charging 100, 150 bucks an hour, whatever I was. Like I physically can't teach enough hours to make this sort of money. Just it doesn't
24
work. It
hours
doesn't
in a
add up.
day.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So my point being, the YouTube and when we did all this stuff was timed. I was kind of burnt out. I'm listening to Jim Rohn. My brain's working for the first time. But I believe the only reason that we've stuck through this long enough and did all these things is because I allowed myself to think about making 1.2 million a year when I was making 80,000. And as you know, I mean, dude, when I'm making 80 grand, me thinking 1.2 might as well have been a billion at that time. It felt so far away. But then it makes you think like, what would it actually be like to do this? And the only thing I could come up with is if we had a membership site where people were paying a monthly recurring thing. So I thought, okay, 2,000 people at $50 a month is 100 grand, a month. That's 1.2 million. And that's where we launched our YouTube and cogornogolf.com. And that's been like the sole business objective for the past 8 years. So it's a long story, but hopefully I think that paints the like why we do a lot of our stuff is after the clarity of that bigger, longer term vision.
Right. You're totally right on every level there. I mean, especially when you talk about thinking big or big to you at one point, the 80 to 90, hey, we're cool. We're comfortable. Where things are moving along. I don't have to worry about where I'm going to eat. I don't have to worry about where I'm going to sleep. And if my buddies say, hey, let's go out tonight, I don't have to shake the couch to try to get 50 cents out of it. Just you're having a good time. But it's interesting because I found myself in those ruts before. I call them ruts, but back then you're just like, I was just comfortable. But comfort is often not a good place to hang out, at least not for very long. So it's interesting when you're just like, what would it take? And then would I be willing to take it? And it's so interesting how just one little video is just like mind blown. What if I did this? Whoa. That's cool. I love it. Tell me, I want to back up a step and ask you about the golf thing specifically, doing this, offering this coaching and stuff like that for golf. There's a lot of coaches out there for different things, right? Whether it's weight loss or business coaching, whatever, insert thing here. Golf, I know a lot of people that golf, and I know two that I would consider to be good at golf. So to coach golf means that you got to be phenomenal at golf. So tell me about that learning curve and trying to get around or through the I'm not good enough to coach kind of thing. Because I imagine there must have been a
Mm.
little bit of that.
Yeah, so like when I grew up, I was playing all kinds of different sports, baseball, basketball, football, golf, etc. And I started golfing because my dad golfed. When I was little, my dad would go golf on the weekends with his buddies. And when I was little, I think like a lot of us did, I looked at my dad like he was Superman. So I didn't really care about golf. I just wanted to go hang out with him and his buddies on the weekend. And then it turned into like I wanted to beat him and his buddies on the weekend. And by the time I was about in high school, 15, 16 years old, I was like, okay, I'm going to just focus on golf. I got to the point where I could shoot around par, probably in like 11th grade ish. So I got pretty good pretty fast,
Wow.
but I spent a lot of time on it. Like in my early years of high school, it was like school golf, and that was about it. Like I
All
really, really
right.
hammered those in. I'm like an all in or all out obsessive sort of, guy. If we can't, I think a lot of us are. So I got pretty good pretty early relative to like my local area, right? So I went and played in college at a small D1 school. It's like good enough to be competitive, but not definitely not good enough to like think I'm going to go play pro or anything. And when I was in college, my first event in school, because I'm still thinking a little bit. You know, when you're younger playing sports, you're playing little league, you hit a home run, you think you're going to go play like Major League Baseball one day.
Oh
Like
yeah.
as soon as you get out of your state or something, like you're getting, you got no chance. Dude, my first event in college, I remember playing with a kid from Louisville, which is like a decent golf school, nothing great. And he was just so significantly better than me, and it was so clear and obvious I'd never be that good. And he just went to Louisville, not like Miami or North Carolina or whatever. And so like pretty quickly, like I need a backup plan. And it's funny the golf coaching thing because at that point I think it's funny. I worked at this golf course, and I don't know if you ever go to the range or see like the guy who picks balls in the range. That's what I did. I was out there in the little picker picking balls in the range. This is 2007, 2008 ish. So I'm making minimum wage. This is like $6 an hour, 6.25. And I'll never forget, I'm picking balls. It's August. It's hot in Pennsylvania. Our range is bumpy. So I'm in this cart, bumpy up and down. I'm hot. I may have even been hungover. I remember not feeling well. And I brought this little picker on the side of the range. And one of the guys who's now one of my great friends, Paul Viola, was teaching golf there. And I'm taking these balls out and putting them in this thing. I'm not super happy to be there. And he made an offhand comment, not braggy, just made it that he made $50 given this 30-minute golf lesson. And so I'm thinking to myself, man, I got to work 8 hours picking this range to make $50 pre-tax. And he just made $50 in 30 minutes. And I was watching it. It was like, they're joking. He's in the shade. This guy hit like a couple golf balls. I'm like, this looks pretty darn easy. So I actually got into the coaching in the beginning just out of like economic, hey, this would be easier to make $50 in 30 minutes versus pick the range. It wasn't like a passion thing. Like I wish my story was I really wanted to help people play better golf, and that's why I got into it.
My
But it
dream is
wasn't.
to make the world a better place by playing golf, right?
Yeah, yeah, it sounds nice, man. But it was just like made more sense to do financially, and yeah, and started coaching. Now I never thought like and Paul, the guy, told me I wanted to coach. He was nice enough to mentor me. He started giving me some of his clients. I think I started $30 an hour was when I started, and compared to making six, I was like,
Yeah, top
that
of the
was that.
world.
Yeah, miles and bottles. I felt like this is really, really good here. And I never felt insecure about my ability to play the game, but I felt very insecure in the first beginning about my ability to teach the game.
Oh, okay.
And I think a common trait of a lot of coaches in the beginning is when you feel insecure, and probably in a lot of transactions, we tend to over deliver or over give too much talk and too much information. Like when I give a golf lesson now, James, just to put it in perspective, I might give a student one, maybe two main things to work on. Probably like if you delve into someone's business model and you're like, hey, we got to focus on like this one thing first. Same thing with a golf lesson. But in the beginning, when you're nervous, you know what's going on. I might be slinging out 10 things. I mean, I'm giving them all kinds of stuff to do, and then nothing gets done. But I think that's a necessary evil. So yeah, I started coaching just out of financial. It made sense, and then I think I just felt so bad about how bad those first couple things went that it just drove like a 10-year. I mean, I read every book, watched every video, studied everything golf swing related possible to try and get really great at it.
That is awesome. You are so right. So right. When I started my business coaching practice, I would charge by the hour. And I remember the majority of my first meetings would go 2.5, 3 hours. I'd one go
Yeah.
4 hours where I was just, you're pitching and catching and having a good time with this person. And I break it down and I was like, I didn't make anything on that because it went so long. And you meet with them the next week or next month, whenever time. They didn't do anything you told them because you just gave them so much information that they essentially got inundated and said, I don't even know where to start. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're so right. So right. It's funny. That's funny. So tell me what made you decide to branch out into social media and stuff like that, YouTube's and all that kind of stuff, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, besides just selling memberships on a site? Because, I mean, you're talking 2010, 2015, membership sites were kind of the jam.
Mm. Yeah, at that point when I had watched that Jim Rohn and I started thinking, hey, let me get into this personal development, and I started watching some more YouTube stuff. I was watching like Grant Cardone, Gary Vaynerchuk, and this is like 2015, 16, right? So like they're still newish to it, but yeah, it was a lot of like recurring revenue, build membership sites, so on and so forth. And in the golf space, there wasn't a lot of people doing it.
Oh,
There was like, yeah, there was like two or three people who were pretty early, like first to market, posting on socials and doing membership sites back then. Different ballgame now. So there was a demand for it. I could see things were going online, right? I could see that happening. And then again, my options felt limited. Like when I did that Dream Life thing, I did that before we started the YouTube channel. So I kind of was like, this is where I want to go. How would we even get there? And so when you start thinking about getting 2,000 people to sign up, I'm like, where am I going to get 2,000 people from? So in person, locally, in my local market, maybe a couple hundred people knew who I was, maybe. And Grant Cardone used to always say, get attention first, build audience, get attention first, build audience, get attention first, build audience. I used to listen to his 10X audio tape like it was going out of style. So I took a lot of that to heart, and we're like, okay, if I want to get 2,000 people, I need more people to know who I am. First things first. So where can I get people from? And at that point, YouTube was the best option. So we started doing. We posted our first video January 1, 2017, and we're like, okay, I'm going to do 3 videos a week. In all 3 of them, I'm going to promote this site. I'm going to use this as a vehicle to get them to the site. I'm going to give them 10 to 15 minutes of great free content, pitch them for 20, 30 seconds. I found in the beginning, again, back then I could get away with longer like pitches compared to now. That feels a little different to me. So I promoted the site in every video 3 times a week for 7 years. And so that was all like pretty clear to me of the direction we were going. Now, the journey there was, way harder than I thought, way longer than I thought, et cetera, et cetera. But um, social media and why we did that was because I wanted to get to that 1.2 million, 4 million financial freedom thing. And it just felt like the only way I could get that many people to sign up for something. At that point, I also was flirting with like, hey, I could do golf schools, get 10 people to pay 2 grand each, 20 grand a week. So like that was part of it too. And then I'm like, where are these people at that would do that? I didn't plan on, hey, when I get this YouTube and audience stuff, that's going to help my in-person coaching. But that was a nice side benefit. When we first started YouTube, I think I charged, let's say $100 an hour. And then went from like 100 to 150 to 200 to 300, to higher and higher fees. So that was a nice ancillary benefit. But just Grant Cardone really beat into me, build your audience and get attention. And
all
that's where
right.
that game plan came from. Yeah.
Tell me about the get attention part.
So, I think the moral of the story of what I remember him saying was basically, if people don't know you, they won't buy from you. And I was like, that's simple. That makes good sense to me. True. And then I thought, like, again, I'm thinking in my mind at that point, maybe a couple hundred people know who I am, like in the golf space. So if 300 people know who I am, how do I sell 2,000?
Right. That's assuming
Yeah.
100% sales to everyone you know in the golf space, right?
Right. Like they're going to tell their friends, they're all going to sign up. So yeah, then I started thinking, and I didn't know about conversion rates or this, that, the next thing. So I'm just thinking like, oh man, like, all right, if I could get 10,000 people and 2,000 people sign up. And then the reality is like, we needed hundreds of thousands of subscribers to get 2,000 people to sign up for something. So I didn't factor that in. I also didn't factor in churn rates and people leaving. So there were some lessons learned there. But yeah, it was all like people need to know who you are, not personally, but like that you exist. Like if I don't know McDonald's is a thing, I'm never going to go there and get food. I've
Right.
got to know it exists. And yeah, like when people say stuff, James, like this on a podcast, one thing we've been good at, because as you know, like the advice, I give so many people advice and they don't do anything with it. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One thing we've been good at is like when someone says something like that to me and it makes good sense, I'm like, man, I'll go all in on that. So that, yeah, that's all thanks to Grant Cardone.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. There are a lot of mentors. I'm a big Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn. Very, it's
Oh, nice.
interesting. It's interesting to hear them speak because even though I feel like a lot of the stuff is like you said, it's like, well, people pay to listen to this. This is common sense. But then you think, well, you're listening to it and you're being inspired by it and you know it, but you still, it feels good to hear it.
Mm.
And it's interesting just to hear the two different personality types. Tony Robbins is a punch it in your face kind of guy, and Jim Rohn is just a slow Southern lean against the chalkboard. I remember the first time I heard him, like you're 10 seconds into the video thinking, who is this guy? But then after another 10 seconds, you're just like, tell me more. So funny.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's very
Yeah.
cool.
And dude, I think for anyone who's listening, watching, if you haven't been exposed to Jim Rohn, I just simply cannot recommend highly enough listening to his things. Like his that once 2 hour seminar. I mean, for the past 8 years, I've listened to that probably 2 to 3 times a week still today. I listen to it over and over and over and over and over. And there's still little things that I glean from it. And I find that even though I'm immersed in the world, and I wonder how you feel about this, like I still need the reminders.
Oh,
I
yeah.
still need the like mindset. I still need the things. And I like people who say things like a John Maxwell too, who say things so simply and so direct, where it just makes so much sense that it's just then what do you want to do about it? There's no confusion. You're like, I get it. That makes perfect sense. That's exactly what I should do. And then it's just like, am I going to do this thing or not do it? And I think to the point of the seminars and paying and listen to people, like that Grant Cardone 10X tape, I think I paid $25 for. I mean, that has made us millions of dollars. That
Nice.
$25, you know what I mean? But it's all because obviously I listened to it and I'm like, hey, we're going to take action on it. We're going to do stuff about it. But I don't ever listen to something one like that. I think a lot of us need to like listen to less people, but like go deeper, you know, and just listen to those couple core concepts over and over and over. That's helped me at least along the way.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you say that about that one $25 cassette being totally worth it. Many, many multiplies over. I was teaching a business planning class a few years ago. And I came across a Craigslist ad that I shared with the class. The Craigslist ad was Tony Robbins Personal Power 2, unopened, brand new, right? So, and the funny thing was they were cassettes. So we're talking early 20, well, I guess it'd be late teens, early 20s. I don't remember if it was pandemic or not. It must have been before that. Anyways, so I shared this with the class, right? This guy's selling this set that he probably paid a few $100s for, selling it for $50. Cassettes, which means that it's been sitting on a shelf for 20 years. So this guy bought that thinking all I have to do is purchase the cassettes and that's enough.
Mm.
And after 20 years of it sitting on his shelf, him never even opening the cassettes, he decides, you know, it's probably time to stop dusting this thing and let somebody else share it. And so I was trying to use that as a model for the students to say, look, it doesn't matter. Like you can't pay for this information and just have it like sit on a shelf near you and you just absorb it by hanging out next to it. You actually have to listen to it. You probably have to listen
Mm.
to it a lot and go back to your notes and stuff like that. Like this is a repetition thing. This is not I did my push-ups one time, so I'm fit for the rest of my life. This is
Mm.
exercise. You got to do it routinely. So I totally get that. It was funny to me because there's a student in there that didn't even know what cassettes were. And I'm like, that's how long these are on this guy's shelf. That's how long. So it's
I'm,
interesting. I totally get it. Where you gotta just keep feeding your mind. You're even feeding your mind the stuff that you've heard 1,000 times before. It doesn't mean that you've heard it enough. If it's the right thing, right? So I totally understand that.
I think that's right, man. I'm curious to get your take. I had a couple of thoughts there. I think, Jim Rohn says, stand guard at the door of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I love that quote. What goes in and what goes out. And I always feel like for me, I've got this like cup that could be filled every day. And it's like it's going to get filled either way. And I can either fill with positive stuff or negative stuff. So for me, especially in the mornings, I'm just trying to jam positive stuff in there to like fill my brain with as much good as possible.
Totally.
I'm curious your take, man, because it's like because I think you do a lot more coaching and helping other people than I do. Spend a lot of time trying to think about because we could give great advice or anyone can give great advice, but obviously we know if you don't do anything about it, you're not going to just that you gave a great example there. Like, why did that guy not listen to the tapes? And how do you get people to do the thing? And I always just go back and I'm curious what you think and what you think are the main things. I always go back to like when I did that goal setting workshop and I got so clear on what that dream life looked like. And I like really deeply felt the emotions associated with like what that would be like. And I was so in and committed to it. It felt so much easier after that clarity to do the stuff and take the steps. Whereas I think my whole life before that, when I didn't have like a big enough, clear enough picture of things, it'd be really easy to like fall off, quit along the way, never take action. So I always just have been thinking about that a lot. It's like, do you think the lack of clarity and like, oh my gosh, that would be so awesome? Like, is that what holds people back from doing it? Or what do you think people don't take the action?
That's a very good question. I don't have anything that I would necessarily consider fact, just perception. For I guess so. Take that for what it is. I feel like there's broadly speaking, I'm gonna way overgeneralize here, but I feel like there's basically two types of people in the world. There are those that are comfortable and they're comfortable being comfortable. And then there are those that are geared more towards growth. And I feel like there's something more I want to learn, I want to absorb. And the more you learn that there is to learn. And
Mm,
you're always hungry, always thirsty, because just sitting on a couch watching a football game or something like that isn't fulfilling to you because you want to learn. You want to hang out with people that are interested in learning. But I found a lot of people are just cool, they're comfortable, just being wherever it is that they're at. And it's interesting because I was talking with a contractor friend of mine, and he says, it's interesting, James, because we are fighting and pushing for growth personally with our business and all that stuff, right? It's just a constant game. But he's like, we don't want everyone to be there because we need employees.
mm,
And if everybody's fighting for growth, who's going to be the employee?
mm,
So it's interesting hearing that a lot from him because he's got a ton of employees. I got a fair number of employees. But it's interesting because I look for employees that are confident and growth driven. But he made an interesting point. Like if they're too growth driven,
mm.
they're going to go somewhere else. And it's an interesting kind of, I don't maybe internal civil war kind of thing where just like you want to hang out
Mm.
with people that are interested in growth, but a lot of times people just aren't. I think of all they just had a garage sale, citywide garage sale near us, and my wife likes to go garage sailing just to buy junk, I guess, or look at other people's junk. And every time I go to a garage sale, these are not something I hunt down. So I just you hang out with her, you end up at a garage sale. How many exercise videos do you see that are still in the package
Mm.
or just unopened? So I think people have the mentality like that'd be cool. I'd like to get in shape, or I'd like to start a business, or I'd like to do insert thing here. But in the end, there's pain, right? Exercise to a point, there's pain. Starting a business, certainly some pain. dinking around with social media where either people give some negative comments or you don't get as many likes as you wanted or something like that, then you're talking about pain there. So I think to a point, there's a tolerance level that people are either willing to do to get the
Mm,
thing that they want. Or I also wonder, maybe they're just like, I'm hanging out here. I can afford to go to the beach for a week every year. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? I'm
mm,
cool. I'm comfort. And anytime that I see somebody comfortable, I feel like I always treat it like a tree, right? You're either growing or dying.
mm,
So if a tree ever feels comfortable, like it's not trying to tear through dirt, it's not
mm.
taking on wind, that tree's going to get weak. But it's the trees that
Love that.
keep standing up during the hurricane stuff and they dig through the dirt, dozens of feet in the ground. Those are the trees that last, I don't want to say forever, but a very long time. So I feel like
Yeah,
some people are just they're happy being comfortable. And
very
it's
cool.
interesting because to me, a lot of times it's challenging to have conversations with those people.
Mm,
Because you're like, what did you do today? And some people are like, I watched the coolest video. It's amazing, right? This guy inspiring, this quote, that quote kind of thing, or I'm growing my business, or I had this little challenge. It's always fun to talk to people who have a challenge and they're interested in overcoming it. But a lot of times the people that you see that are comfortable are just like, what is it? What do you ask? How's it going? And they're like, it's going. Right.
yeah.
I don't know if you ever hear that.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm like, what does that even, does that mean you're not dead? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a helpful answer you're looking for or not, but I feel like um, some people just maybe they don't even know. I don't know. Maybe they don't know. I think of the first. I'm going to dare say the first real job that I had. I had a lot of jobs when I was younger, but I get this job as a printer repair guy. I got fired from that printer repair job for attitude, which is totally justifiable. Um, anyways, I was really good at fixing printers. Great. I had other technicians from other companies calling me when they would get stuck. So I was really good at essentially was dying industry. But anyways, I got fired from the job. And at the time I was really upset because I'm like, I've never been fired. What in the world, right? You take it as a personal attack. And then I think if I wouldn't have been fired from that job, I would have I would have stayed at that job. I want to say forever, but printer repair is not that much of a thing. So I would have stayed at that job until that
Mm,
business folded. And then I would have been like, I got skills that nobody cares about, right?
yeah.
Like I can fix printers. Like, well, yeah, we don't have those anymore. So it's interesting how a little bit of pain was introduced into my life, right? Getting fired.
Mm,
And then that triggered me to eventually I started business, started a podcast, write a book, all that kind of stuff. Where I'm like, if that outside pain that I had no control over or limited control over, if that didn't happen, I'd still be some guy that would just be happy making my $10 an hour or whatever it was, having out just being comfortable. I'm not necessarily happy, but comfortable. Happy enough, we'll call it. So
yeah.
I didn't
No,
know
I,
any better.
that very interesting, man. I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's yeah, it's spot on. I think about the what I story I told before, where like what led me to do all this stuff was the pain. I mean, to your point, is the pain of
Right?
like I can't do this forever. It's a great point. Totally true. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to think what would happen if you didn't come across that PR lady.
Mm.
Like where the trajectory
Well,
of your life and stuff like
I'll
that.
say this based on me buying my own camera and trying to not even be able to get it turned on.
Ah,
Probably no YouTube.
that is awesome.
Probably no YouTube. Yeah.
That's awesome. Tell me, I want to dig into the partnership a little bit, if you
Yeah.
don't mind. Business partnerships, I've had some. Some have been really good, some have been less than really good. So tell me, how has the partnership worked with you?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, I think I got really lucky meeting Mary. She's great. Our business has worked great. Yeah, there's of course great like over time from here to here. There's ups and downs, but I kind of go, I guess like kind of a saying the same thing a lot, but it's like I think it's been great because we both had a lot of clarity on where we were going. So when
Oh,
we
that's
stumbled
cool.
along the way, it wasn't like, hey, what's going on? It's like, no, we're heading here. This, you know. I think the clarity along the way helped a lot. it's been interesting hiring people and employees. We've had great people on our team along the way too, but I could see where like sometimes I've had to, you got to try three, four, five people out to find one that's a, an A player. But I think I just got really lucky where she was an A player right away. And so,
Nice.
yeah, it's been really, 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 really good. I don't think I would have done anything that we've done now without her being there. It's been a very equal relationship, and we've been good along the way of like just figuring it out. Like, hey, this is where we're going. This is what we're dedicated to. We both get really clear together on like the path where we're going, and then we'll figure out the minor stuff um, along the way. So yeah, it's been really good for me, and like again, like a highly recommended thing that I would say to other people who are, if you're really good at a thing and you want to stay focused on being great at that thing and find someone else who could like run the business or do the back end stuff as you're building team members, there's just, and having accountability. The other thing, James, is like, I think just having someone else there, for me at least, of like, hey, I gotta show up every Monday. Like, we filmed every Monday more or less for 8 years, like without
Holy
fail.
cow.
Yeah, I mean, minus like a holiday or two here and there, like we basically every Monday we'll film and go over our stuff. So like, not every Monday do I wake up feeling like going to film videos.
That's awesome.
So like some days you go in, obviously it's easy, but the other days where it's not so easy, it would have been really easy if I was by myself to just not go do the work. I like to think I'm disciplined, but you know, I don't know. So I think the accountability of a partner for me too is super, super, super helpful. I'm sure people have bad partnerships and it's not always gravy like mine has been, but mine's been really good.
Yeah, there's partnerships, good, bad. It's a relationship, right? So it's just like any relationship. It can go south or it can grow, or I mean, it's how much work you're willing to put into it. But the
Hmm.
accountability piece, that's huge, huge. That's a
Yeah.
that's a very, oh my gosh, that's probably worth it right there. It's an incredible thing to have.
The other thing, James, too, I'll come across when I talk to people about stuff like this is like, yeah, for example, let's use me. So I was getting 100% of my 80 to 90 grand a year. Whereas I could have a partner and theoretically with growth and stuff, it's like, okay, if I get X percentage, I'd rather have 50% of $10 million
Mm-hmm.
than 100% of 100 grand type of thing.
Right.
So things that I don't think I would realistically be able to do by myself, meaning I'm not willing to do the work required, learn the skills, put in the time, but I am willing to give a chunk of something to someone who is. And the older I've gotten and the more that I go, I wonder if this is the same for you. I think I more realize that like what is it? Dan Sullivan wrote the Who Not How. I mean,
Okay. Yep.
Who Not How book. I mean, just finding the right people and who's around you to do things faster and right away versus me trying to learn not new skills, but like skills that are in a different category than what I'm great at. That has been a big, big learning lesson for me too. Whereas in the beginning, I tried to wear, I think in the beginning, you probably wear a lot of hats no matter what, but try to get good at too many things at once. Where like looking back now, I should have hired people and put people in roles sooner. I was just scared, and that's okay. But it's like, okay, I could have given this golf lesson, another golf lesson for $100, hired someone for 20 or $30 an hour to do that task, and they're way better at it than me.
Right.
Like that would have made a lot more sense. That's something I wish I would have heard and implemented a little bit sooner.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, you're right. You're right. Getting other people to do the things that you're not as good at, or even don't want to take the time to learn or to do, so that you can do the things that produce. That's a big step. But I mean, employees are challenging, vendors are challenging.
Hmm.
So I completely understand the apprehension or the being like tiptoeing in there because I mean, in the end, employees and vendors, those are relationships as well. Some good, some not so good. And their work because it's a relationship.
Hmm.
So I think of the employees that I have and have had, where some are just like, I want to buy you a car. You're so awesome, so
Yeah.
incredible. And others where I'm like, what do you do? And neither one of them tells you that in the interview, right? You have
Right.
this one interview where you're essentially saying, hey, you want to get married? Right? Raise a family together over this 1 60-minute interview. It's interesting. I don't know how else people do it. I suppose they have 10 interviews or something like that with the same person. That seems weird. But at any rate, I totally understand the apprehension. But you're
Yeah.
right. you're right. Once you get a team and that team is solid, oof, you can do incredible things multiplying. Incredible things.
Yeah, it's and one of the other things too, I wonder if you've learned the same thing is like I've learned the value of spending more time up front trying to find the right who in person. Like Alex Hormozy, he has been popular, lately. I watch a lot of his stuff, and he has a great way, I think, of perspective of things. And he said something along the lines of like one A employee could be worth like 10 B employees
Oh yeah.
or one A plus. Yeah, it's interesting too when you're like, and if you haven't found an A before, until you do find it, you don't really understand how valuable that is or the difference of like, oh wow, that's what an A plus person looks like. I think I've been pretty lucky in the people that we have. We have like a team like 15 people. So I don't have like thousands of employees. We have like
Mhm.
some people, right? And I just think we've been lucky to find good people. But then after those first few, when I realized that, like my first guy that I hired was an A plus guy.
Nice.
Yeah, looking back upon it now, I didn't know at the time, but like the people we've learned after, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, oh, that is what that looks like. And so I think because he was so good, it gave me a lot of clarity on what A plus looked like to be able to hire well after that, which is just lucky, I think.
Yeah. So how do you in the interview process, if you don't mind me asking, how do you distinguish or attempt to distinguish, I should say, between the A plus, and the B players, or even C's, if they make it to the interview?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like to think I have pretty good like EQ and can get a grip on someone pretty quickly. So like, the simple shitty answer is it's a lot of gut feeling for me.
All right,
Like
that's all right.
yeah, like I'm an analytical guy, like numbers and this, that, the next thing. But really, at the end of the day, it's more of a gut feeling. And I also think I found like you could tell so fast in the first like week or month. Like the people who have been great for me required very little training. The people who I've had to overtrain, like the people who've required a bunch of training for me, were never ended up being A people.
Oh, interesting.
That's been an interesting learning thing. Now, maybe they
All right.
didn't know like the specific skill as well, or maybe we need to teach them some things, but like got it quick, required very little from me, once we did an onboarding. And so, I've got a set of things that I would talk to someone about, but it's a big gut thing. And honestly, that gut thing for me happens early in the conversation.
All right.
Like, yeah, it's like shake hands, speak first couple sentences. I feel like I could get a quick judge of who's in front of me. That's not right all the time, you know.
Fair.
But yeah, but I think the amount of training required for the first 30 days with me has been like the indicator that's been the biggest factor.
All right. Very cool. Are all of your employees local to you, or do you have some remote?
Yeah, all remote.
All
So
remote.
with
Okay.
yeah, so Mary and I, my business partner, we'll be in the same spot, but our employees will be like editors, assistants, coaches, things that people could work remote where we are. Because like 98% of our revenue comes online
All right.
from either from various sources of YouTube or from our membership site or affiliates, licensing agreements. So it doesn't require us to be in the same spot. And like seven of those are coaches. So
Oh,
when we do
nice.
the online coaching, yeah.
Okay.
So they can coach from remotely from wherever they are. And all of like our full-time assistants and stuff, it's all digital, which has been nice. We don't have any like office or anything like that, which has been low
Low overhead.
cost.
Okay.
Yeah, low overhead.
Very cool. Tell me, I want to delve into the making money online thing. I
Yeah.
volunteered for I don't even remember. Yeah, I want to say junior something or other. Anyways, I taught a few classes at the third and fourth grade level, talking
Oh
about
wow.
business and community and stuff like that. One of the questions we asked the kids is, "What do you want to be when you grow up?"
Hmm.
And there was a class I was in. Half those kids said they want to be YouTubers. Half. And I was like, man, when I was a kid, we had firefighter or astronaut, balloon
Right.
teacher, doctor kind of thing. But YouTuber, and I'm like, all right, how do you make money on YouTube? And they're all looking around and they're like, merch. I'm like, great. What's merch? And they look around and they're like, I don't know. We don't know. We just know make money on YouTube selling merch. So you having actually done it, can you give us a
Yeah.
little bit of the outline of what people your experience with it and what you can expect and how the game works?
Yeah, yeah. So we it's sort of the old thing of like having multiple streams of revenue, like an average millionaire has nine streams of revenue, so on and so forth. But like they had one thing that they mainly made money from and made nine later. YouTube for us is work kind of the same way. We get a lot of little things that pay us now.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the main thing from YouTube, we're shooting for is AdSense. And so I'm going to talk to you as if you don't know any of this, even though you do. It's like you put videos out. Once you get past a certain threshold, the ads that we all see when you watch a YouTube video, they pay Google. And then you split it. I believe it's 55-45. But let's just say you get half. So, which goes to show you how much money they're making off of that. Every single
Mm-hmm.
creator, they get half of all the AdSense, which is wild. So you get about half of the AdSense. So to scale that, our first year of YouTube, just the AdSense wise, we posted three times a week for a year, made $0. I think it took 12 months to get to 1,000 subscribers. Yeah, okay. So we had 1,000 subscribers, no money after year one. Now, when we first started doing our YouTube videos, I didn't want to do these like gimmicky videos. I was like a golf coach, and I'm like, let's film me doing lessons and give them real stuff, I thought. And so it's very literal. Like the titles, thumbnails are very literal. And my business partner, Mary, said, hey, we should do these like different we should do like tip videos. And I didn't want to do it. A year goes by, we're doing videos, they're getting no views. I think the quality inside the videos are really good. So I'm like, these are good videos, we're going to get views. And so I went online, and I'll get back to the answer your question right after this, but just to give some context, I went online and I searched like the people in my golf space and like who were the people that were getting views. And I'd look at our videos and look at their videos. And their videos were like, how to gain 30 yards in 10 seconds with this amazing, incredible, unbelievable, never before seen tip, right? And mine was like how to putt better. I'm like, okay, yeah, I could see where like people are clicking this versus mine. Our thumbnails were just like a picture of me, kind of colors were off. It was, just whatever. Theirs was like this, like cool, beautiful stuff going on thumbnail. So it became apparent that we needed to go in that route. Year one, no money, 1,000 subscribers. Year two, I'm finally like, okay, let's do this tip video. And instantly, the first set of three videos we filmed, we did like gain 30 yards with this one swing tip, like fix your slice forever. They're like clickbaity, borderline clickbaity sort of titles. And that instantly changed our business. I think we went from like 1,000 to 40,000 in year two. We made like maybe 20 grand in year two. So still like nothing, but something. And then in year three, we went from like 40,000 subscribers to like 100. And then I think we went from like 100 to 200. We kind of kept getting bigger and bigger, bigger. AdSense was the main thing online. So let's say now we do like between 150 to $200,000 a year in AdSense. It's like Google pays you that from YouTube. Our membership site's our main generator. That's the people paying their monthly recurring revenue. But in terms of YouTube, like let's say 150, 200 grand, that's like we have like maybe 300,000 subscribers on there. I think we get 3 to 5 million views a month across all socials. So probably like 1 to 2 million views a month on YouTube itself pays us that 150, 200K. And then we do affiliates, which is probably our like next biggest category. So like products that I would promote within a video that we would get a percentage of. Let's say we do 100 to 200 grand a year in that. So that's like our second thing. And then there's a lot of like little spin-off. I mean, we sponsorships now. So our goal this year is to do like 200 to $250,000 in sponsorships. That's like a company that pay me to wear a shirt, hat. We do like a little promo within club stuff like that. That's obviously gotten bigger as the audience has gotten bigger. Um, so for us, like our style channel, we could do like $1 million a year, let's say, in like YouTube specific revenue, but it was like zero, 20 grand, like 100. And then like once you get past kind of a little peak there, then it can hockey stick quite a
Oh, then
bit.
just okay.
Yeah, that's what I found. So we had our biggest year on YouTube last year ever, which was awesome.
Nice.
We
Congrats.
yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, we're getting better, some little wins along the way and stuff like that. But I think it's a slow process. And I think for a lot of us, it's, you know, if we make let's say along the process, we would make 500 grand on YouTube, let's just say, for example, then I'm trying to make like 5 million with the main site thing. So I think you got to kind of scale up as you go of whatever thing you're trying to you have to make the making money online the secondary thing, you know, and make your main thing, keep your main thing the main thing. Like I talk to people all the time. It's so funny. Half of the third graders said YouTube merch. I tell
Merch.
people a lot, they'll come in and it's like for me, let's use me. If I'm making 80, 90 grand a year in coaching and I'm making zero on YouTube, like I'm not going to quit my coaching and go full-time YouTube and make zero. And I kept doing full-time coaching like that for probably like 4 years until it's like, okay, hey, now I'm making as much money in this area as I am this area. And then all of a sudden I'm making way more over here. Now I can decrease this side. So I see
Ah.
some people, I think, make the mistake of like jumping all into it and then getting rid of their main thing. Whereas I think you should keep your main thing. Advice to myself, I would say, is like keep the main thing until the side thing spits off enough. And it's, I mean, gosh, everything for me has taken longer than I've thought and
Oh,
like
that's
probably
the
more
game.
work than I've thought, you know?
Totally the game. Yeah, I get it.
So I think you just have to have patience with it. And one last thing on that, James, is like, I think a lot of what gave us success is when we'll do a set of videos, we look at every set of videos and just try and like improve one thing. Like especially if you're in the beginning of doing it or building and you post once a week, let's say, and you have 4 videos to look at, like what's one thing from this last set of four that I can improve for the next month? Not 10 things, like one thing. Okay, my hook and intro could be better. Great. Next month I'm going to make the hook and intro better. And then the next month, like, oh, my thumbnails aren't as good. And like model success, it's one thing we have going for us. It's very easy to see what does work. Very easy because it's right there.
Hmm.
So, you know, if your thumbnails and titles are not in the same ballpark as those that are working in your industry, that's the starting point. The longer I play this online game, the more I learn that the stuff you do to get someone to click is more important than what you give them after they click
Isn't that
in terms
crazy?
of building audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the book, it's the book cover. It's
It's not
weird.
the book, it's a book cover. That's a great, yes, exactly. Same
Yeah.
thing with YouTube videos.
That's it. They tell you not to judge the book by its cover, but we totally judge the book by its cover.
And the worst thing I think, James, for a lot of us, like this is how I felt in the beginning, is like imagine you have a great video and you tell them great things you think could really help people and no one watches it.
I
That
have
to
some of
me is
those
like worst
videos.
case scenario. So do we. Yeah, so do we, man. Like we put out what I thought were so many great videos and no one's watching. Now I think like having said that, great book cover. Now inside the book too, you're going to try and, you know, you want to give them a great product, obviously, but
Hmm.
yeah, you got to find ways to get people to click and get their attention and think about just like we do when they're scrolling through or looking at something, just like our behavior, like what's going to pop up on that screen that's going to make me click and watch it.
Hmm.
And so we try and really ride the edge with like clickbaity, you know, like you think about like what would wow someone.
Right. Yeah, it's
Like,
interesting how that curve has changed because I have a 10-year-old son. So it's interesting to look at what he's watching and what
mm.
he's, some of it, I was just like, ugh, how are they getting millions of views on this? It's cringy. But on the flip side, I'm like, well, they're doing something right. They know their audience. So what can we
Yeah,
do?
and exactly. And that's like, you know, I have that same thing. It's so funny you say that, man. Sometimes I'll see stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I would never watch this, but I'll watch it and try and like analyze how they do things. And I think at the end of the day, if we look at those sort of things like unemotionally and analytically, you can see patterns, great hooks to grab attention, storytells that keep them interesting, you know, the promise of something later, the same sort of plot, you know, like along the videos as you go, you can see themes amongst a lot of these people who know the game. And then the trick is like, how do we use those themes in what we're trying to do, if applicable? Like,
Right,
if applicable. Yeah.
right. That's cool. Tell me, the social media landscape has changed over the past, let's call it 5, 10 years. right?
Mm,
TikTok wasn't a thing a few years ago. Now it's a big thing. And I'm old enough to be on Facebook, but there's some people that aren't, right? Instagram, all that jazz. And who knows? In a year or two, there's probably going to be something else that comes along, right? It's just, there's always something. How do you stay on top of social media
mm.
and keep track of what is hip, where your audience is, and all that jazz? And if you can tell me when you post something on one, are you posting it on all? Or you're
Mm.
like, this is a Instagram kind of thing, this is a Twitch kind of thing, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
Can you
good
explain that a
question.
little? Yeah.
I think for us, it's I'm very, very vigilant about keeping the main thing, like really aware of that. So I'm like, hey, we do YouTube, we do
All
YouTube,
right.
we do YouTube, we do YouTube. Now we do YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok are kind of our main three. So in the beginning, we did just YouTube. I did some little personal Instagram stuff. Then we started adding Instagram, and then we started adding TikTok. TikTok, we take clips of so YouTube video we do, let's say it's 12 minutes. So there's always like 3 to 5, 30 to 60-second clips within that 12-minute video to be repurposed. So we'll repurpose those for TikTok. I don't make any organic TikTok content. Not that that's right or wrong. I don't even have TikTok on. I don't even have it. But one of our people on our team does it. They post it, clips the videos. I went on TikTok once on my phone and just like 2 hours went by and I was in like a dark hole. And I said, I got to get rid of this freaking thing. So I don't even have it. I got that rid of that. Um, I know how easily I get distracted, James, right? So like I look at things to answer you, like, how do we stay on top of things? I look at it, I see what's going on. I've seen so much success with YouTube, and I think YouTube and Google are going to keep pushing in that direction. I don't see that going away. So I would rather really be great at this one thing and keep pushing forward than have my attention split on multiple other things. That's how we perceive it. Not that that's right or wrong. I think to do all the platforms well, you need a team of people, or you're doing it full time and that's like all you're doing. I don't see a world where you can be great at a main thing, let's say coaching golf, and be great at YouTube and be great at Instagram and TikTok and email, whatever, unless you got a team of people. Like Gary Vee, I love Gary. Gary Vee, I've learned so many stuff from. And the way he talked, he's talked over the years about putting out so many pieces of content and stuff. Either you need to do that full time or you need a team of people doing it. So I would do less but better
All right.
would be would be what I would look for. I think YouTube is going to keep growing. It's a behemoth. I think it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger. I don't see Instagram going away anytime soon. We lean into Instagram. Originally, I created unique content on Instagram. Me creating a video. So every Monday we film 2 YouTube videos. Used to be 3, now we do 2. And then I would film Instagram videos after we were done. So I'd batch it all in one day. And it was scheduled, it was pre-booked. That's another thing that helped me a lot that I think helps people is like when I was coaching full time and started doing content, it wasn't like, oh, I'll do it when I feel like it. It was like, hey, this is Monday, 12 o'clock, non-negotiable every week. And it was the start of the week. Like this is our most important thing. So that helped me.
That's
So now
cool.
we do Instagram clips. So same thing, just clips from the videos. And then we upped our posting from 3 times a week to daily. I've seen pretty steady growth doing that. So I wanted to test that versus me creating videos. I want to remove me from as much of that as possible. So we just repurpose those videos. To your point, our editing is so good. Like our editing team, I think, do a great job. I appreciate you saying that. I will tell them. Then we have great edited clips.
All right.
So we film this video once, we edit it once, and then we can clip them up and put them on other platforms. Honestly, I think that gives us about 70 to 80% of what we would get if we took the time to I think we could grow more if we're like, hey, let's dedicate X amount of hours to posting these platforms. But I've been on Instagram for 10 years and I've made maybe $500 directly from Instagram. I make almost no money from there. We don't make any money off TikTok. Some people do make a lot of money. YouTube makes us 1 million. So I'm like, okay, like if anything, let's double down on this thing that works well. So I think less but better. And like if you can't do one platform, great. You've got no business doing 2 or
Right.
3 or 4. It's how I look at it. But at the
Fair.
same time, it's like, there's these platforms you want to get on and be early to market. Like who knows what'll be next? And if you're like the people who were early TikTok, crushed. People who were early Facebook, crushed. YouTube. So it's a great point. trying to keep the main thing while being aware of and open to like the new opportunities. What do you think?
Boy, I am not anywhere near you in success on YouTube. I'm not on Instagram, which is I believe is a mistake to a point. But on the flip side, I don't know Instagram, and I've had some false starts with employees that were trying to help with that. So
Mm,
I'm like, it's the whole thing, like you're saying, keep the main thing the main thing. So I put all of my focus, at least for the podcast, on YouTube.
mm,
And for the call answering, we really don't do a ton with social media at all. I'm not saying that's the right way at all. I'm saying that there are priorities, where like it's a list of priorities, and we got to take care of these before we get into the social media realm.
mm.
I have had what I would consider to be false starts with the call answering service, social media stuff, where I had crew that would post. I paid a company to post, and in my experience with that industry, it's B2B. It was lukewarm at best. That said, YouTube podcast, I mean, it's pretty much, I'm going to dare say, we just started marketing our YouTube channel fairly recently, past few months. So that has now surpassed audio. So where
Oh,
before
cool.
audio, we were getting 3 to 4 times the podcast downloads through the podcast channels for audio only versus YouTube. YouTube, we're starting to push because I'm like, we got to monetize this thing, man, so that we can step up our game. And I haven't figured out a good way to do that from the audio side, at least not a practical way to get the kind of revenue that we're talking about, to get editors and stuff like that, like really get in there, spend hours
Yeah.
on stuff. So YouTube has been the like, this looks like the most practical way. But that said, we're nowhere near. I mean, I don't know, we're at 1,700, 1,800 subscribers. That's nothing. We are nickels inside a couch. So that this is a year that I said we got to figure this out. Otherwise, before the podcast, it was fun. It's knowledge. It's out there for the world to see. But we would get 12 views or something like that, and I'm sharing it with a guest. And I was actually embarrassed because I'm like, there's incredible information in that thing, right? That
Mm.
guest shared their story. They shared the whatever it is in their profession. They shared stuff that, I mean, it's just like the Grant Cardone thing, right? It's $25, right? That if the people that were in that world would take an hour to listen to that conversation, that hour of their life would make them hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it's not clickbaity. Like they don't know it exists, so they don't do anything with it. So I felt like we got to market this thing and get this out in front of people because I know that we have good information. I know that we have incredible content. I feel like we need to do something to just tell the world, right? And that comes down to marketing. So
Mm.
I hired some people to help market it and push it. But I would not consider myself an expert, even a fraction of an amount. I am certain that there are fourth graders out there that could run circles around us.
Oh,
Certain.
same thing. Yeah. Which is funny to think about.
Yeah, I got to hire one, but
Get that merch going,
yeah, get that merch going.
huh?
The Authentic Business Adventures T-shirt.
Yeah. Well,
So
I think
yeah,
honestly too, just with that, James, it's like what'll be really cool to see is those third and fourth graders and stuff that you talk to 10 years from now, is that as everything matures and the market matures and what they do, I think there'll be all kinds of new avenues going on that are
oh yeah,
money making opportunities, that we don't even see now. I think the thing that's interesting though is like, at what point do certain it's not that it's saturated because there's just, I mean, there's so many eyeballs to be able to get, but it's obviously the more people that come in and you're posting, like if you just look at the pure amount of videos posted on YouTube now compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years, it's like
oh it's insane.
staggering. It's hard to believe.
Just trying to figure out the hard drive storage alone, let alone getting it to you as soon
Yeah.
as you click.
So
Surreal.
it's like that.
Yeah.
It's, if there's 100 people on the corner trying to sell this hot dog, it's like, how are you going to be the person that sells yours and standing out and getting attention and just being great? I think those just core tenets are still going to still going to apply. But the more people there, the more creative you got to be, the better you got to be, the more you got to stand out. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting process.
Yeah. It's just like anything else in business. In the end, it's a game,
It's a
and it's kind
game.
of fun,
Yeah.
right? It's a game because it's kind of fun to figure out how I always think of it like chess, right?
Mm.
Chess is it's a fun game. I love playing chess. I'm gonna say that I'm pretty good at it. Not great, pretty good. And it's interesting to play with people that are you're way better than, because then you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm a grandmaster. And then you play with someone that's even marginally better than you, and you're like, okay, I'm a toddler. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I feel like right now in the YouTube game, I'm a toddler. Even though
Mm.
that I've tried to absorb a bunch of information to learn, that is a game that I still have not wrapped my head around. So that's where I shifted gears and said we got to pay some people that know what they're doing,
Yeah.
because I clearly don't.
Well, one of the things I think with the podcast too, with the algorithms, you could grow, like you could hockey stick pretty quickly. If you find a way to get a guest that's like very
Yeah,
clickable, you
yeah.
know?
You know what's interesting? I had Peter Egan. I don't know if you know who Peter Egan is.
I don't know
Um,
the name. Who?
so Peter Egan's an author. He wrote for both Cycle World and Car and Driver. No, not Car and Driver. Oh my gosh, I just swore. Road
Peter
and
Egan.
Track. So in that world, I'm a gearhead that way, especially with motorcycles. In that world of magazines, remember magazines, right? Most authors, writers, in my mind, aren't that good. They
Mm.
know the stuff. There's only so many ways you can describe how an engine sounds.
Mm.
Peter Egan takes that to, I mean, it's an art. It is phenomenal. And so I would just pick up a magazine and I'm reading Road and Track, and I subscribe to that magazine purely to read his one article every month. Every
Mm.
once in a while, he'd have this thing where he went on a road tour or something like that, so he'd have a few page thing. But I was a subscriber purely for him. And when you read all the articles around it, you're like, nah, Peter Egan. Peter
Mm.
Egan he's just on this pedestal because he is. It's kind of like the whole like there's a bunch of B team. They're okay, kind of entertaining to read. But then you read Peter Egan and you're like,
Mm.
whoa, promised land, right? So, anyways, I pick up a Cycle World magazine and I'm just paging through it and I'm reading, and you're like, good, good, good. And I come across an article and I'm like, holy cow, this guy sounds like Peter Egan, right? Sounds like. And I realized, oh, it is Peter Egan. Well, anyways, I learned from the articles and subscribing for years that he's actually like a half hour away from me.
Oh wow.
I tell my buddy, like, it would be cool to interview Peter Egan. The next day, my buddy's like, I talked to Peter. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You talked to Peter? Like, it's like someone saying, like, hey, I talked to Jesus. Like, what do you, right? Or actually, I talked to someone at Google.
Yeah, right. Yeah, true.
And he's like, I found his number. I called him up. We chatted for a half hour. He's expecting your call. So I call up Peter and I'm like, hey, Peter, how's it going? Do you mind if I interview you on the podcast? He's like, yeah, come on down. So I go to his shop and uh, I'm a moron. Like it was like one of these, like, how does now work? And then so I'm trying to grab all my camera and stuff. And I forget to grab, or I forget slash don't remember to grab the power, the plug-in thing for the camera. I don't realize I haven't charged that camera in months. And through some stroke of pure good luck, will, I don't know what you want to call it, divine intervention, that camera stayed on for 45 minutes. I don't know if that camera's ever stayed
Wow.
on without being plugged in for more than 20 minutes. So it's one of those like the world is on my side. The universe was just like, make this interview happen. So, anyways, I'm in the garage of Peter Egan, this guy, right? He's the reason that people are authors in that world. Like he has probably inspired more people on motorcycles and cars than Henry Ford. It's amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. So, anyways, I go through this interview. It's all great and grand. Even the end of the interview, I have to do with my phone because the battery eventually did die. And that was probably more for Peter than for me because I would have chatted to that guy for 10 hours. Anyways, I post that video and it gets like 100 views. So, anyways, eventually that video starts to gain traction by people that are looking for to hear from Peter Egan. I think it's where they're searching specifically for him.
Yes.
And he's not normally my typical audience because like typically we're interviewing entrepreneurs, business owners, and stuff like that. But I'm like independent writer. I'll count that. Gray area, sure. But he made his own money doing his own thing. And talk about a storyteller. Holy cow. That guy's incredible.
Yeah.
So
Now,
is
like, let's even like you like 100x that, right? Where you're like, let's say him, for example.
mhm,
Imagine you somehow, some way you got like Joe Biden or Donald Trump on a podcast.
sure.
You would
I'd interview either
instantly,
one. That'd be incredible.
yeah, likewise. It would be you get millions of views
Yeah.
and you would instantly get all the growth you wanted.
You know,
Now, let's say
it's
you can't get those two guys. It's like, but who else is in between you that you could find a way to get that would get an instant pop? Like Patrick Bet David's a good guy. Do you know?
yeah,
You know?
I just it's interesting you say that. I just came across one of his videos on Joe Rogan and I just read his
Yeah,
book, the Your Next Five Moves or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just discovered that guy a few months ago. Interesting.
He's a he's one of the few guys that I look, and he's not that much older than me. I think he's like in his maybe mid 40. I really, really look up to him. Like really
Mhm.
admire how he carries himself, his family, everything he does. I think he's such a stud. He's a guy where like if he goes on a podcast, no matter how big or small, that podcast is getting hundreds of thousands of views.
Yeah.
So another because it's different now. Like when I when I first started doing videos, it seemed like everyone had a slow growth grind.
Hmm.
Now with the algorithm and TikTok and stuff, you could like pop out of nowhere. So like that's another thing that's interesting is like, you could get 5 years worth of growth in 1 week with the right guest,
Right. Totally agree. Totally agree.
but it's got to be, you know, Patrick Bet David. He'd be
Yeah.
killer.
You know what's interesting is when you said Donald Trump or Joe Biden or something like that, my first thought was, I bet they have some cool stories. I think part of my problem
Yeah.
is that I'm not really looking at it at the money side because I got money coming in other places. It's
Hmm.
really just to get their story and to learn how do they end up where they ended up and what makes them tick, kind of thing. Because to
Hmm.
me, that's the enjoyment, like chatting with someone like you who's got cool stuff going on. You just learn so much and you're like, that is amazing. Because especially the thing that attracted me to what you have going on is golf. I am a terrible golfer, terrible golfer.
Okay.
I have a hard time. Just even my father-in-law is a very good golfer, and he'll come visit us and he'll watch golf on TV, and I'm like, what? I can't wrap my head around that at all. So it's just pure like I got to learn from this guy. I got to learn what the story is. Tell me about golf and people learning golf. And I have seen more people throw golf clubs, not me, because I'm like, that's not going to help. But
Right.
I feel like if I threw a golf ball, it might go closer to where I want it to go than if I hit it with a
Yeah.
club. But I've seen golf get people so mad. And I'm like, I got to learn more about this. It's interesting. So to me, I mean, the money thing, I am, I'm after that purely because from a game, what do I want to say here? The game of business,
Yeah.
money is one of those ways that you measure success. So I'm like, I feel like
Absolutely.
this is one of those things where I want to be successful in this arena just to see make it happen.
We just met here, James. So I like you a lot already.
Oh,
I'm gonna
hey,
challenge.
likewise.
I'm gonna give you a personal challenge.
All right.
And I think we should challenge you to see if you could get Patrick Bet David
All right.
on a podcast by the end of 2024. So that gives you a couple months,
Yeah.
find who's in his networks, who could we, who knows him, who could talk to him. Because that one big pop could change everything quick. And I think he's a guy who, is willing to go out and he's a gettable big guy. So I'd say I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna check in and see
All right.
this year, these next couple
I
months, because
accept
I
that
think you could do
challenge.
it. I think you
Happy
could do
to.
it.
I got to figure out how to get a hold of this guy, but if I got a hold of Peter Egan, I can certainly find Patrick Bet David.
I think you can. I got faith in you.
Plus, man, that guy's got to have some cool stories, fun guy to talk to.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's the best, dude. Great storyteller. He's one of those guys, I think when you listen to him talk, at least for me, I'm like enthralled. I'm so like present when I listen to him and hear what he talks about. And I think what he has a lot of juice and meat behind it. It's a good message for a lot of people. He's got good things to say. and he would grow your audience big time.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
love
like
it.
a
I love it.
quadruple whammy.
I will do
And then
that.
I'll come back on right after him. I'll be
Yeah.
the next. It'll go right back downhill.
Hey, Patrick.
It'd be too funny.
I love it. I love it. Eric, I think I kept you too long in the show. We went way over time. So I appreciate you staying on.
Yeah, man. No, I enjoyed it, man. I appreciate you having me on. I'm going to keep track of the episode and stuff. Hopefully some of that stuff was valuable. And yeah, let's do this again maybe next year after you do that with him, and you'll
Oh,
we'll
hell's
see
yes.
how big of a pop. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Hell's yes. I love it. I love it.
Cool.
Yeah, he would be a cool guy to have on the show. I don't know if he'd be as cool as you, but I mean, you shared an incredible
Yeah.
amount with the audience as well. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, man. My pleasure. I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie. If you're listening or watching this on the web, you know what we need to do. Thumbs up, subscribe, and of course, share it with your entrepreneurial friends, especially those friends like me who are terrible at golf and could use a lesson or two. Eric is the guy. Eric, I forgot to ask you, where can people find you?
Yeah, if you go on YouTube and just Cogorno Golf, Cogorno. We just started a new personal development channel, Lessons I've Learned with Eric Cogorno. That might be more in line with the audience as well.
Nice. I love it. Lessons I've learned.
Lessons I've learned.
That is cool. I love it. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, Eric Cogorno. How to build an online coaching business. Trying to think what else I have for you, Eric, but I think you got the website. Is the YouTube channel?
That's great.
If they just type in Eric Cogorno, they'll find you?
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. My name is James Kideman, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for service businesses across the country on the web at callsoncall.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book of the entrepreneur in all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link found at drawinCustomers.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.